So here I'm going to show you the very first hand. In this situation, I actually don't want to show you this very situation here. I want to analyze the situation. If this guy folds, what we can jam first in, and assuming the big blind is a weaker opponent. Here I'm going to apply the method of a 360 analyze. What does it mean? Here I'm basically already showing you how you can learn pushing and calling. If you analyze a hand, you should never look at the hand itself. I marked this hand because it was pretty deep, and I was also interested. I mean, here we have a pretty clear call, but I also wanted to analyze, okay, how many more pocket pairs I can call, what kind of ace-x hands I can call. So here you should always try to look further and not only analyze the situation itself. Also, you don't want to change your hands, your holdings. You also want to change your stack size, maybe positions, and also change the entire situation. So assume, okay, low jack folds here, and I'm going to analyze my first in range. So we're going to do that together now. So what you do is you go in your tracker and you copy the hand history. You click on the hand, right click, and then copy. What you do next is, if you have the Hold'em Usage calculator, so I'm going to give you a quick introduction, but I'm not planning to make an introduction tutorial of Hold'em Usage calculator IC. There are plenty of tutorials in the internet, which you can just Google on YouTube or wherever, or forums where people answer questions. You can ask the support if you have problems. But what you basically do is you click on home, basic hand, you pass from clipboard, so you just copied the hand history, then it automatically puts in the stack sizes, also the blinds. And since we are not analyzing, or we are not considering any ICM effects, we are only assuming we are playing chippy V. So then I click on finish, then it analyzes a bit. I'm gonna pause. Oh no, I'm not gonna pause, it's actually pretty quick. And then we can analyze the situation here. So this guy is called only many. So he's jamming, and we see, okay, we have a call with pocket sevens, and we can actually also call pocket threes. But what you should always do is you should adjust his jamming ranges. I really doubt that he's jamming that loose, so I'm gonna take out some hands, and maybe around 22%. That looks fairly reasonable to me. Then you see pocket threes is a hand we should always avoid calling. It's just too marginal. There's no need to take such a risk. So hands I would call would be ace-8 suited, king-jack suited, king-queen off. Ace-9 off is also kind of close. Probably I'm going to fold it. Ace-10 off. I wouldn't mind calling here with ace-9 off though, and pocket fours are better. So this would be the range I can call. But now let's assume we get first in. And so we just close this line here, and we hover over a screen name, and I'm going to click on this arrow. And you can see this is always the ranges you see right away. Those are the Nash ranges, but you always want to adjust them. And here we are actually pretty deep. We're around 12 big blinds. So pretty deep. I mean, deeper than 10 big blinds. So this is our opponent's calling range, but obviously this is total unrealistic. Let's assume he's calling a bit tighter, and I think this is a little bit more realistic, around 32%. And even that is loose. I mean, do you see, like, especially when it's deeper in a tournament, that people call so loose for 12 big blinds? We can put a lot of damage to his stack. So then you can see, you can literally push any two. I mean, 7 deuce off and 3 deuce off are fairly close, but you should jam at least hands like 9-5 off, 8 deuce suited. If you're not taking those spots, you're going to lose a lot of money, especially recreational players are calling super tight. And here, especially when it's deeper in a tournament, you can be for sure that they're not calling king 8 off, king 7 off, queen 9 off, queen 8 suited, and these kind of hands. So then you have a crystal clear any 2 jam. And this becomes even more clear if you change the stack size. So let's assume we have only around 11 big blinds. Let's say we have 10 big blinds. Okay, so now we let him run, and you can see Nash wise, we're supposed to jam fairly loose anyway, around 72%. And look at the calling range. I mean, this is also very, very loose. So let's just put it to 45%. And you can see that we can almost jam 100%. And again, this guy only has 100K or 113K. And if we jam 60K into him, we can assume he's not calling so loose, because again, we're going to put a lot of damage to his stack. So assuming he's folding some of these crap hands, and this is already quite loose, 39%. And now the thing is, since we have only 10 big blind stack, we should take those spots here. We should be fairly loose. Everything that is below 0.2, you should avoid. Why? There's one effect which the Holy Roosters calculator is not taking into account, and this is a card removal effect. So if there already 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys are folding in front of us, it is more likely that big blind might have a hand. There's no tool that can analyze this effect, but the effect is not so significant. It impacts the EV though, so that's why I say, okay, in order to consider this effect, I say, okay, I avoid everything that is 0.2. But look at the calling range. I mean, let's face the truth. We're getting deep into a tournament, and it's a hobby player, it's a recreational player, and is he really calling that loose against a 10 big blind jam? It's still quite loose. And if you say, okay, this is realistic, this is what we put him on, then you can comfortably jam 100% of your hands here. So even though you might see an opponent here and there that calls you with Queen 5 suited around 40, yeah, that might happen. But in the long run, if you take the average of all the recreational players, it's going to be like this. Because you will also face recreational players who call like this. Maybe not so tight, still probably any ace, maybe around 27%. And then you will face recreational player who call 40%. Then you will face recreational player who call 32%. But for sure, the average, what they call in these spots, is 32%. In the long run, you're gonna literally print a lot of money here in this situation. I mean, just put yourself in the shoes. And since you bought this course, I assume you're either a professional poker player or you want to become a professional player. Would you really call a hand like King 5 off here against an unknown, or even against a regular? I highly doubt that. Against a good opponent, you have been playing against for a long while, you know he's a decent winner, you should call fairly loose here. You should definitely call Jack 10 off, the suited kings, these kind of hands, you should definitely call. Again, also, you should avoid calling with marginal hands here anyway, because you have a healthy stack, you're going to find better spots. It's also totally fine to give up a little bit of EV here. So you can comfortably fold all those borderline hands, because most of the time people are not jamming as loose as they should. So Nash suggests them to open jam 72%, but let's assume he's just jamming 63%. Then you can see we have to call the range I have basically suggested. When giving up a little bit of EV, the range is something like Queen 6 suited and better, King 5 off and better, Queen 8 off and better, Jack 9 off, 10-9 suited, and so on and so forth. Yes, we can also say he might min raise or limp aces, kings, jacks, but it's also possible, especially these days, people start limping more, that they're not having those trashy hands in the range, and they're also limping it or min raising or whatsoever. And so it kind of balances itself. So all in all, I think if you stick to a range like King 5 off in this spot and Queen 7 suited and better, you're already good to go. Against a weaker opponent, against a recreational player, and this is something I will speak about more in detail later on, which they're probably jamming something like this. Like, very often it's just the top 30% of hands. They rather limp a hand like 6-5 suited or 9-7 suited. They want to see a flop. They don't have the balls, especially in later stages in tournaments. And then you have to call pretty tight. And this is something I can tell you from my experience, also the experience I've gathered from many conversations with other high-stakes sit and go and tournament players, and also from database analyzers. Recreational players are pushing very tight. So if you're not sure, always go for the fold. You're gonna make way more money with this decision rather than, okay, I'm gonna gamble. That's not gonna work. And by doing this kind of analyze, you saw how the ranges change. You see how different pushing ranges impact the calling ranges. So you always want to change the stack size, positions, your cards, the player type in order to see how the range changes, how certain circumstances impact the ranges in order to strengthen your understanding of calling and pushing.